Welcome in or welcome back to another episode of You Are the One You Seek. As per usual, I am your host David, and as per double usual, I am reading from the Jeshua Channelings. So today I'm finishing off the Lightworker Series section of the book with the chapter Time, Multidimensionality, and Your Light Self. So the Lightworker Series was basically broken down into Lightworker Part 1 through 3, which I re-released pretty recently because there were some major editing mistakes that were bothering me. Some people said it was actually better that way when you repeated a few lines because it put more emphasis on what you were reading, which I get that, but man, my ADHD brain and like my old radio broadcasting training, even though it was like in high school many decades ago, still is in my ear. Like you gotta make sure the edit is clean. And, you know, the other problem is that my jaw pops and there's planes flying over. I live near the airport, so there's constantly planes flying over. A lot of Dodge Chargers in the neighborhood trying to turn my the street in front of my house into a drag racing strip. So, yeah, it's a little challenging with the noise and the heat. I'm in the detached garage attic when I record this stuff, and it does not insulate well. So if it's hot outside, it is freaking hot in here, and trying to keep it cold is very noisy because the AC is kind of old and very loud. So I basically have to run down the air, turn it off, and try and record really quickly, which again, puts pressure on me and I feel stressed out. But I'm trying to not allow these circumstantial things to bog me down, I have a long history of using excuses, situational or circumstantial things that are kind of a problem, and allowing that to ruin an opportunity to do something useful with my time, or something that may be beneficial not only to myself, but maybe to somebody else. So, distractions aside, today I am reading Time, Multidimensionality, and Your Light Self. And it's a pretty short chapter, so this will be a shorter episode, but I'll probably have a little more to say at the end of the reading, just giving my 2 cents. So that's always, of course, skippable. If you're just here for the readings, then here we go. Time, Multidimensionality, and Your Light Self. In the previous chapters of the Lightworker series, we have told a more or less chronological tale about the history and inner development of Lightworker souls. This story may give you the impression that you develop in time from point A to point B, from dark to light, from ignorance to wisdom. And in certain ways, this is the case. Yet in this closing chapter, we wish to draw your attention to a different perspective, a different way of looking at yourselves, a perspective that lifts you outside of time, outside of this particular history, and acquaints you with your timeless existence. In other words, your multidimensionality. There is a part of you that is completely independent of space and time. This part is free at any moment to enter any dimension or area of experiences it wishes. It is free to choose dark or light at any time. From your earthly perspective, you travel from point A to point B in a linear fashion. For example, you travel through the 4 stages of inner development that we discussed, step by step. From a timeless, multidimensional perspective, however, the real you is not developing over time. It is the one who is experiencing the development. The real you does not need to develop. It allows this experience by its own free choice. This choice is motivated by a deep knowing of the great value of experiencing duality. From the perspective of your timeless spiritual self, you are at any time free to experience any point on the line from A to B to Z and beyond. You can activate any reality of consciousness for yourself at any time. For the idea that you are stuck within a certain range of inner development is ultimately just an illusion. The reason we want to draw your attention to this perspective is that it may help you break through your inner barriers. It may help you pierce the veil of illusion and get in direct touch with your own light self, the energy of the angel that you truly are. To grasp this as a real perspective from which to view yourself, we need to expound a little on the notion of time. Time. At the highest level of oneness, there is no time. This is the level of spirit, God, pure beingness. At this level, there is no development, no becoming, but only being. At the lowest level of oneness, at which separation is experienced at its strongest, a hollow, linear notion of time is employed. By hollow, I mean a scientific, abstract notion of time that is completely devoid of subjectivity and felt content. Time in this notion is an objective structure outside of you. Time is something laid over your experiences as an external framework. A curriculum vitae, for example, which you send in when you are applying for jobs, often consists of such an objective timeline of facts. In this year, I did that. In that year, I graduated from that school, etc. You emphasize the visible, external side of things. The inner side of things, the motivation, the meaning, the subjectivity, is left out. On the energetic levels in between oneness and separation, time is a reality that fluctuates with your experience. Time is an experiential notion, a way of carving up experience. At these levels, there is time, but it is not something independent of or external to your experiences. For example, on the astral planes where you travel during sleep and also after you die, there is no clock time. Clock time is the utmost attempt to disentangle time from subjectivity, i.e., from you and your experiences. It is a grand illusion. On the astral planes, time is the rhythm of your experiences. Sometimes you rest. Now you meet someone. Then you study for yourself, etc. The point at which one stage ends and another one begins is not determined by clock time, something external, but by your inner flow of feelings, by what seems natural to you. This natural sense of time or rhythm can be part of earth life too. The subjectivity of time, i.e., the fact that time can be experienced differently in various circumstances, is familiar to all of you. You say that time flies when you are having fun, whereas time seems to come to a standstill when you are in the waiting room at the dentist, or in the line at the supermarket. Now the skeptic inside of you may say, time is perceived as moving slowly when circumstances are experienced as negative, whereas time is seemingly going faster when circumstances are positive, but time itself is always the same, ticking by in the same rigid manner, however we experience things. This is the objective framework notion of time, also called the linear notion of time. It stems from a rationalistic, scientific approach to time. But imagine that there were no clocks, no night and day, no natural influences such as sun, moon, and tides by which to measure time. Then you could only rely on your own subjective sense of time. Your objective measure of time, the clock, is not really based on something external. It is the product of the human mind that wishes to divide up and classify. The human mind has abstracted a certain order of things from the natural phenomena on Earth. But time in itself, independent of the human factor, does not exist. It is an illusion that is the product of a type of consciousness that is caught in the belief in separation. Time is essentially subjective. Time is a way of carving up experience in such a way that you can make sense of it. For example, you say of someone, "He is an old soul." Do you really mean the number of years or lifetimes when you refer to his old age? Or do you mean by old that he expresses certain qualities such as wisdom, balance, and serenity, rather than a certain quantity of time? The reference to time in the phrase old soul is really a reference to experience. Time in the full sense of the word is the dynamics of becoming on the inner level. It may be a helpful concept insofar as it helps you articulate the natural rhythm or flow of things, but when conceived as something objective, standing over and above you, it tends to limit and distract you. You are not limited to a particular timeline. You are not a linear being. There are levels of your being that are outside of the framework of time that you are presently experiencing. It is to this aspect of yourself, i.e., your multidimensionality, which we wish to draw your attention to now. Multidimensionality. According to the linear notion of time, you cannot be present in more than one place at the same time. By you, the linear concept refers to your body, your brain, and your consciousness that is somehow tied to your body/brain. Science cannot yet explain how exactly body and consciousness are tied, but it does maintain, generally, that consciousness cannot exist without a physical body. According to the full subjective concept of time, you are present wherever your consciousness dwells. Where you are in time and place is determined by the focus of your consciousness, not by the location of your body. For example, you are at the station waiting for your train to arrive. It will take some time yet, so you just sit and stare for a while, and unnoticed you get into a slightly altered state of consciousness. You are now thinking of someone you were talking to yesterday. You recall that conversation easily, and you vividly remember how it affected you. You are reliving certain aspects of that conversation, drawing it into your now moment from the past. What you are actually doing here is that you travel to the past and you visit the energies of that moment again. Your now energy interacts with the energy of the past, possibly creating changes in your experience of that moment and thus altering the past. By altering the past, we do not mean that you alter any physical facts, but that you overlay them with a different interpretation or perspective. By altering the felt content of a certain past event, however, you are in a sense altering the event for you. Just think of this example. You had a conversation with someone who got really offended by a remark of yours which had no critical intention at all. The other person you were talking with started to scold you and then walked away. Now you in turn felt offended, feeling misunderstood, angry, and shocked at the same time. After you got home, you felt troubled for some hours, but then you let it go and had a good night's sleep. Next morning at the train station, you had to wait for your train and you suddenly recalled this peculiar conversation, where things went wrong so surprisingly. You now look at it from a different perspective and suddenly you realize why the man felt so offended by your remark. You remember some facts about his past that you simply had forgotten before you had that conversation. You can now see his emotional reaction in a whole different light, especially as having nothing to do with you. It wasn't you who was causing the hurt, you just triggered an old hurt inside of him. This perspective sets in motion a different emotional response inside you. You feel a sense of relief, insight, and yes, forgiveness. Oh, I see. Now I understand. Poor fellow. At that moment, you are recreating the past. You are overlaying it with a different interpretation of the facts, which replaces your initial response. To be clear, this does not mean that the initial response did not take place, but that the energies of anger, shock, and misunderstanding have been transformed into understanding and forgiveness. A spiritual alchemy has taken place by the interaction between past and present. Really, the physical facts aren't that important. It is the felt content of a situation, your energetic reaction to it, that really shapes your life and your reality. Therefore, we may rightly say that you can alter the past by traveling through time to past energies which still need resolution. While you are sitting at the station, conducting your time travel, there is some layer of your consciousness still present with your body. You may sense in the back of your mind that your hands are getting cold, or that some youngsters behind you are talking loudly. Consciousness is able to divide itself up. It can be in different places at the same time, meaning that consciousness can dwell in different energetic realities at the same time. This is the meaning of multidimensionality. Your consciousness is not limited to space and time. Although you have a basic agreement during a lifetime on Earth that some part of your consciousness is always connected with your Earth body, your consciousness is not thereby limited to one specific point in time. You are not limited by the past or the future, for they are not fixed. They are liquid fields of experience. They are changeable, and you can interact with them from the now. Your consciousness is multidimensional, even when you think that you are imprisoned within your physical body. Do you know the expression, "she is stuck in the past"? Someone cannot let go of the past, and her consciousness is filled with the past experiences and with emotions such as regret, remorse, or just grief. The person is not here. She is literally in the past. She is, as in the example above, interacting with the past from the now moment, but not in a liberating alchemical way. Her body is present in the here and now, but she is stuck in the past. Time for her stands still while the clock is ticking and measuring the passage of weeks and months. This is because she does not move experientially. She doesn't flow with the natural processes of life and experience. This is an example of multidimensionality. Even when you limit yourself to such a narrow focus of consciousness, you are being multidimensional. By this, I mean to say that multidimensional is not something you become, it is something that you are. It is your nature. It is your natural state of being. The real question is, How can you be multidimensional in a liberating and transforming way? How can you employ your multidimensionality in such a way that you can move freely through the dimensions and not lose touch with your divine spirit? Being multidimensional from a place of wisdom and awareness, that is your spiritual destiny. It is your destiny to become fully conscious, multidimensional creators. Being consciously multidimensional means that you release the illusion of linear time, which also means to release the notion that you are no more than your body. Being consciously multidimensional is to identify yourself with the spirit, the God inside of you that is absolutely free to enter any realm of experience, i.e. dimension, that it chooses. Being consciously multidimensional is an essential part of the reality of the new earth. The reason you struggle with the concept of multidimensionality is that you conceive of being in two different places at the same time in a physical way. Your body cannot be in two physical places at the same time. However, dimensions are not physical places, not chunks of matter, so to speak. Dimensions are realms of consciousness, spheres of consciousness that abide by certain energetic laws. Your consciousness can partake of different dimensions at the same time. This happens now. There are realities of the past, the future, the astral planes, past lives, of the angel inside you, and even more, that are intersecting and meeting inside you right here and now. You are multidimensional now, but are you multidimensional in a conscious manner? Do you allow the dimensions to flow in and out of you? Do you accept what energies they bring you, and can you recognize them as yours? You interact with the other dimensions you are a part of all the time, but if you do so in a conscious and accepting way, you are actually transforming those dimensional realities. By embracing stuck or pent-up energies from those dimensions and holding them up to the light of your consciousness, you liberate and integrate parts of yourself and you change your present. Many realms of consciousness meet inside you, and you are essentially the master who chooses to experience any of them. You are free to travel through any of them, fast or slowly, near or far. As long as you identify with the spirit inside you, you will keep the awareness that you are free. But when you get stuck in thoughts of limitation, holding beliefs such as, this is not possible, that is not allowed, this will go wrong, etc., you sink into the illusion of separation. You are caught in the illusion of linear time, the illusion that you are a body, the illusion that you are separate from God. In this way, the soul gets temporarily bound to certain realms of experience. The soul forgets about its true origins, its divinity, and its freedom. This being caught or bound is also called karma. Getting unbound or unstuck often proceeds along a number of steps or stages of what you call inner growth. From the human linear standpoint, you are releasing karma and slowly transforming yourself according to the 4 stages of inner development that we have described in this Lightworker series. From the standpoint of spirit, however, you are simply bouncing back into your natural state of divine awareness. From that point of view, releasing karma is nothing else than remembering your own divinity. Your light self. Many dimensions, many realms of consciousness come together inside you, and you are really the master, the creator of the whole field of dimensions. You are a star with many rays, a soul consciousness with many manifestations. You are free to activate whatever reality you choose. If you drop the notion of linear time or chronology, you allow yourself to believe that the past or the future do not determine you. You can then feel yourself to be at the center of a vibrating field of dimensions, all emanating from one divine timeless source, you. Imagine yourself at the center of all these realities, all these possibilities, and then choose the one that carries the most light for you. You choose the brightest, most lovely ray in the field, and now, for a moment, go inside of it and feel what it is like to be that ray. This is your light self. This is the part of you that is most like God. Traditionally, the beings closest to God are called archangels, and that is what you are in this dimension, right now. You truly are archangels. Archangels are beings that are very close to Spirit or God, but they are not completely one with it. They are one step removed from absolute consciousness, meaning pure being without differentiation, becoming, or individuality. Archangels have a kind of individuality. There is uniqueness to all of them. An archangel may be said to have certain characteristics. One cannot say this of God or Spirit, God is all and nothing. Because of this, archangels have entered the realm of separation, the realm of I versus other. They are a part of duality, however slightly. An archangel is an aspect of God that has manifested itself as a particular being, a particular form. The Greek philosopher Plato called this an idea, which in our terms is a basic or archetypal energetic reality that transcends the physical world. Archangels are in that sense Platonic ideas. There is an archangel, or idea, of love, of truth, of goodness, etc., each embodying the energy of a particular aspect of God. Archangels are not so much persons as energy fields with an individual flavor. Why did Spirit or God externalize aspects of himself in this way? It was from the joy of creativity that he did this. The archangel energies are an expression of God's unending creative joy. Archangels are not outside of God. Nothing is outside of God. God is in everything. God is present in all created energies as the Spirit aspect. This aspect is what makes all these energies one. That which separates a being from another one, what makes it different and unique, is the soul aspect. The soul aspect covers the individuality of a being. All created beings that have individuality are truly a coming together of spirit and soul, of consciousness and experience. Creation is a dance of spirit and soul. The archangels are, so to speak, the firstborn children of God. Not first in a linear sense, but in the sense of being very close to God. They carry a deep awareness inside of their divinity of the spirit aspect. Humans perceive archangels as a bright and pure light. There are different archangels. Every archangel emanates energy like rays of light from a sun. By emitting these rays farther and farther away, the archangel gets in touch with unknown spaces, with realms of experience that are new to it. The archangelic energy reaches out, and in the spontaneous creative moment, it stumbles across that which is other than it, that which is not light but dark. Dark here just means further removed from oneness/spirit, further drawn into the realm of individuality. God or spirit is neither dark nor light. God simply is. Archangels are beings of light. By creating light, God also created dark. This is simply because archangels are in the dimension of duality, outside of oneness. They have a sense of individuality, though. The creation of the light self, the angel, brought with it the creation of the dark self, the part of the self where light is absent. There is beauty in this polarity, since it constitutes the dynamics of creation. God, pure being and consciousness, longed for experience, and this experience she gains through the created universe, through her presence in the light and dark aspects of it. What the archangels were going to experience after they entered the realm of duality, God did not know. This is what she craved, not to know everything, but to experience something new. In stepping out of oneness, the archangels entered an empty space, a space of potentiality, a space of unending possibilities. The archangels found out that they could create many forms and live in them. Every form you inhabit as a conscious being has a certain angle or perspective to which it enables unformed consciousness to experience things in specific ways. The whole process of the archangels venturing out for experience can be portrayed as a huge waterfall of sparkling light. The energy of the archangels poured out of God/source like a massive flow of sparkling bright water going in every direction. Within this huge stream of water, little streams separated themselves, dividing up into even smaller streams, until they were tiny drops of liquid light. These drops may be compared to individual units of consciousness, each with their own set of experiences. The dance of spirit and soul had now truly begun. The individual units of consciousness, which we call souls, went on with their journey. They carried deep within themselves the energy of spirit or source, as well as the energy of the archangel they stemmed from. But as they traveled further and farther, they came to experience that it was possible to forget about their origins, to forget about their divinity, and to become lost in darkness and illusion. This polarity of dark and light could best be experienced as a human being living on Earth. When we describe the process of archangels emanating from Source and eventually becoming human, it seems that we are telling a linear, chronological tale, but this is not so. The emanation or waterfall of energy from God is happening right now. This tale tells you about the identities that are available to you now, not about what you were in some distant past. At this very moment, there is a layer of pure archangel energy inside of you, a layer of pure light. There are also layers of confusion and fear inside of you, but you can choose at any moment to be the light self, the angel that you are. This is not something you need to develop. It is simply a part of who you are. It is important to realize that you do not need to look up to spiritual masters, guides, or angels. There is not one authority above you. You yourself are among the firstborn, sitting next to God's throne. You yourself are God and angel. The easiest way to get in touch with your light self is through connecting with the layers of pure consciousness, pure spirit inside of you. This you do by becoming silent on inner and outer levels. The silence you experience then is really ever present in you. You only need to become aware of it. When you are connected to silence, the dimension of eternity inside of you, you can feel Spirit's desire to experience. From this desire, your light self was born. The soul experiences the greatest joy in the interplay between spirit and experience, the interplay between divinity and humanness. This is the secret of the universe. When you are purely spirit, your reality is static. Nothing changes. Experience and movement only arise when there is a relationship with something outside of you/spirit. When you sense something other than yourself, there is an invitation to explore, to feel, to find out. But to experience something other than you need to remove yourself out of absolute oneness, out of God/spirit. When you do so, you become an individual soul. You are a unique soul, 1 foot in the realms of the absolute, 1 foot in the realm of the relative, i.e. duality. In your explorations of relativity or duality, you may go so far away from home that you lose contact with the element of spirit inside of you. Your soul then gets lost in the illusions of fear and separation. The greatest joy possible is when you take part of the realm of experience while staying connected with spirit, with home. The balanced interplay between spirit and soul is the source of the greatest creativity and love. From this perspective, you are all on your own way to finding the right balance between absolute oneness and being an individual soul. The ones among you who are Lightworkers are at present working towards a greater awareness of their oneness with spirit. They have traveled into duality long and far, and they, i.e. you, my dear reader or listener, are ready to come back home. Not, however, to a static home of pure oneness, but to a dynamic, creative reality of divine, multidimensional humans whose experiences will be filled with joy and light. In all of you who read this, there is an intense longing for home and a profound determination to truly know who you are. Keep your longing and determination alive and trust them, for they will bring you home. End of chapter and end of Lightworker Series. All right, so that concludes the Lightworker Series from the Jeshua Channelings, which is Lightworker Part 1 through 3, From Ego to Heart Part 1 through 4, and then, of course, Time, Multidimensionality, and Your Light Self. I have plenty of personal things that I could add to this as far as, what I interpret the words to mean or how they impact me directly, but there's just so much there and so much that I believe is kind of needed to be individualized in terms of perception. But I mean, that's kind of how I view everything. We're a unity, but we're also these unique, beautiful beings that have the ability to draw in whatever is resonant with us. And it's all going to be a little bit different than the person standing next to us. I guess if I had to incorporate the overall healing part of this for me in reading these channelings and just hearing the Jeshua channelings through many other mediums is such a reframing of the Jesus that I was raised with. And honestly, most of the Jesus I was raised with was great, but it was all the other stuff that was in such great contradiction to this Jesus I was being taught about. The Bible has plenty of really interesting passages that I think do resonate with the Jeshua of these channelings, but then there's other stuff like, the eternal damnation. If you don't follow my gospel specifically, you're going to hell. Hell wasn't even actually really mentioned at all in the Old Testament. And it certainly wasn't something about eternal punishment and damnation. That's a New Testament Jesus thing, which is kind of shocking, right? Because I think most people associate, and rightfully so, the Old Testament with barbarism and backwards ideology and just control and sexism and racism and all these things. But then, we equate Jesus with progressiveness and expansive love. So it just doesn't make sense why he would also say, oh, by the way, you'll go to eternal punishment if you get this wrong. But, I have, of course, my suspicions with where those lines are drawn in the Bible as far as whose voice is coming through. I think it's beneficial to do a little research on how the Bible was canonized, because that, to me, says a lot about who was involved and what they had at stake. And shock and surprise, it had to do with power and control. So I think there's a reason chapters were omitted, words were probably changed, enough that significantly alters the meaning of a passage. So while I consider the Bible to be a text with many profound ideas, I also see it as any book, especially of history of that time. It's inherently flawed. It's not perfect. It's not going to contain completely applicable truths for our time and our lives, because we're in a completely different era, completely different standards, cultures, values, and world setup. So it really is, I think, part of the reason you see so much dissonance and pain trying to incorporate these old ways. But within that, I feel this healing happening reading these new channelings from Jeshua, because he's kind of going back and saying, look, there were some parts of me that were right and rightly represented from my time on earth, but another big portion too is going to be embellished and used to suit a current framework or understanding, or to bend to an agenda of power, etc. And I also noticed that I say etc. instead of etc. So if you heard me saying etc. many times and you got angry, I don't blame you. I'm not good with words or grammar. In fact, me doing an audiobook is kind of funny, because I really truly am not well read, and I do struggle with reading fluidly or even just speaking fluidly. If I sound fluid, it's because I'm pretty okay at editing, at least. But by and large, I struggle with, getting my thoughts out clearly. So I'm going to continue reading from this book. I just find the material really refreshing and really relevant to, I think, what we're moving into. The landscape right now looks pretty crazy with all of the wars and potential wars that could be extremely devastating. Plus, the environment is absolutely on tilt right now. We have the sun at solar maximum, and we actually weren't going to have solar maximum until next year, but it peaked early. So we're in solar cycle 25. These happen every 11 years, where the sun flips its gravitational field, I believe. I'm sure I'm getting that wrong, because I'm not, again, that smart, and I don't really know much about this stuff other than watching people on YouTube talk about it. But there have been a lot of flares, X-class and M-class flares, and coronal mass ejections, and geomagnetic storms on Earth. We haven't seen the really extreme auroras since May. There was a couple, I think, late last week where they were seen in parts that normally weren't seen from some of the CMEs that we had hitting us. But I expect that to continue ramping up. I've listened to some people like Pam Gregory, who's a very well-known astrologer on YouTube. She was talking with Ann Tucker, who's a transcendental angel channeler, and they were just kind of lining up notes and talking about when they think, things might happen, as far as if there's a solar event, a flash of light, 3 days of darkness, a cocoon kind of moment for the humanity experience to go into a chrysalis and awaken a new and evolved creature. There's a lot of talk about this that has been sprinkled throughout religious traditions, and there is a belief that this is happening soon. Now, Pam Gregory thinks in the next 12 months, because of the sun activity, because of the planetary alignment. She was saying something about how the planets are in the exact same alignment they were in 1776, when America broke away from England and declared independence from them, and basically said we're tired of paying undue taxes and being unjustly represented. And there's a lot of that energy clearly happening right now around the world. People are tired of systems of power just becoming so insanely corrupt and against the needs of people and against the will of the people that there is a natural grassroots movement to overturn that power. And I think in the next few months, we're going to see some real chaos. that might feel really scary. And I'm sure I'll have my moments with my family trying to protect my children that, will feel like, oh my God, I need to revert back to just survival instincts and every man for himself and all of that. And it's going to be a challenge for me to keep that positivity of like, no, there's a shift coming. There's a collective desire for a new world and a new way. It's not because necessarily some cosmic thing outside of us is going to change, but because the hearts of the collective people on Earth are going to be desiring a whole new experience. And there's a lot of us that are definitely doing that right now. We're trying to manifest it with our minds, with our heart, and say we want this new way. We want a way of life that isn't just a food chain that's always about survival and gathering resources and stacking up junk and, fulfilling this notion of the American dream and having the biggest car on the road. All this stuff that we equate with, the complete life. To me, I think there's a lot of people yearning for something totally different. And if enough people do, then we actually create that because our thoughts are creative forces. Now, again, I don't have direct proof for this. This is all based on me gathering different corners of information and sort of absorbing what makes sense to me. But, in 5 years, if things aren't totally different by then, I might have a totally different perspective on all this. Who knows? Again, I'm not the answer for you. I'm not the expert. I'm not the one who can save you or give you answers. I'm just a person who's kind of gone through my own metamorphosis, and I'm trying to be at least a voice out there that is hopefully relatable to others who are just kind of like, man, I don't know. I don't get this, and I'm trying, but I want to be a good person. I want to put love in the world, but like, what's the point if we have all this evil, corruption, and wars, and we're all going to die from, the environment blowing up? But just try and, ask yourself in your heart, is that really what you believe is going to happen? Ask your higher self, your soul guides, your spirit guides, anybody that, because I believe we do have way more assistance on the ethereal planes than we actually can perceive right now. So it's okay to feel crazy a little bit and ask them for help. I've asked them for help plenty of times, and while I've never got like a direct vision, a dream where they spoke to me, I felt it come in just my intuition. I felt it come through what my heart starts to desire in the direction that I feel I want to go in life. Those to me are kind of examples of those higher energies working to help me manifest what I want and help me to crystallize my intentions on things that are actually beneficial to myself and to others instead of just self-destruction and how do I get off of this flaming, awful, terrible rock, reframing the experience and saying this is actually a gift to be here. It's actually an opportunity for expansion, not a jail sentence, which is what it's felt like to me for a good chunk of it, Get me off this prison planet. I'm ready to go home with my people where I'm free and expansive. But I think we're expanding so much more by having these dense and dynamic experiences. And I believe Yeshua is continuously there to encourage us that we are no less than he is, that we are equal because that is how Source created everything, that there is different expressions of the light, but the light is all coming from the same place, and it's just pure love energy. And so we're all just little manifestations of that pure love energy, having new and exciting experiences that we can then create even more expansive realities with. That's my 2 cents. If you were wanting that, if not, then I apologize for the last couple minutes, but stay tuned because I'm going to keep reading from this book until it's done. I still have about, I want to say 6 or 7 chapters maybe. I should probably look at that before I just throw a number out there, but I've gotten through a pretty good chunk of the book, probably around half of it, if not a little more. So I'm excited to read the rest of it, and I really hope that, again, these words are resonant. They're maybe helping you to reframe the Jesus you grew up with, or step out of some of the religious deadlock you were stuck in. It's again so liberating to find out that maybe what was in your heart the whole time you were in a certain belief system was that, that this can't be right was valid, that there was a reason you felt that way instead of just you're disobedient or you're wrong or you can't fall in line. Start to understand that your rebellion to the systems in the world that have kind of held everything up to this point is a noble and good thing. That there's nothing wrong or broken with you for wanting to change, for wanting to see these things that obviously aren't working, since we're repeating these cycles over and over of war, domination, hoarding resources and withholding them from others, demonizing, othering. All of this stuff is just a cyclical mess that we're ready to break out of. So you're not only not wrong for being a black sheep or out of step with society, but you're actually a vital part of the change that is coming. So just keep that hope in your heart and look for little small ways to break the loops in your mind that want to beat you down and criticize you and make you little or less. You're far more than you think you are. I believe that with everything in me. So on that note, now all the fun earthly stuff. If you feel so led, please press the like button or subscribe or share with your friends or whatever you want to do to help support the channel. I don't have any monetary stuff set up because I'm not really at that point yet. Maybe that'll come down the road. I'm not really worried about that. I haven't had a job in nearly a year, but I'm more happy than ever pursuing what is important to me, which is just learning how to expand my perceptions and find love in new ways. So I trust that will help me end up where I need to end up as far as just the money side and being able to provide for my family. And, it's a whole other can of worms, but I'm just trying to lean into that trust and understand that even if this earth life falls apart, that is not who I am at my core. That does not define me as a soul or as a spirit. So, all right. Do all the things. You can email me at youhavethekeys639@gmail.com if you have any questions or comments. I'm on Instagram at youaretheoneyouseek. And as usual, go in love and light, and namaste.